everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. I'll be your astrologer this month, and this is going to be the overview for the astrology of September 2024. If you guys like this content and you want to see more of it, make sure you give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel down below by clicking the bell button, and leave me a comment. And let me know what you guys are excited for in terms of the transits in September. All right, so we're going to do a little bit of two things. We're going to talk obviously about the astrology for the immediate next week. So the 1st of September through the 8th, I will take you guys through that. And then we will be looking at some of the most important transits taking place all month long. Just as a reminder, guys, we do videos here every Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. So we will be doing extra videos where we take a deeper dive looking at some of the bigger transits, the new moons, the full moons, all of that stuff. So make sure you guys stay tuned. But the good news is, man, oh man, September is a much more manageable month. I think July and August were pretty hectic. So this is going to be a welcomed change. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be easy because we are coming into eclipse season. So certain signs and placements are definitely going to be feeling the effects of that. But I definitely think it's going to be a lot easier to kind of navigate. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. One of the big themes that you're going to be seeing taking place in September is a continuation of planets that are going to be moving through the sign of Virgo. Okay, so it's going to be going through Virgo, the mutable earth sign. And it's going to be making oppositions. I guess the planets will be making oppositions to placements in Pisces. So we're going to see a lot of polarity. And when I was kind of sitting down to write the video for today, I was like, you know what? Logic is not going to be the easiest thing to find in September, unfortunately. Yes, Mercury retrograde's over. We'll come out of the shadow. But the polarity between Virgo and Pisces sometimes can be a little confusing. So be mindful that these oppositions are going to have us more health focused, getting down to the details and staying on track and really trying to focus on avoiding any issues with clarity. We are looking out for or watching out for pitfalls and blind spots or self-undoing tendencies. That is basically the general overall theme. You'll see that with the eclipse. You're going to see that with the sun and Mercury coming into an opposition with Saturn and then eventually Neptune. And all of this is going to be squaring Jupiter. So it's going to make Jupiter the focal point of a T-square. And I'll show it to you guys as we kind of go through the transits. But Virgo is a sign that is ruled by Mercury, right? So Virgo is all about finding solutions to problems, practical habits that help us form better lifestyles, and also increase our productivity. So we're going to fall into one of two camps this month. We are going to be about the problems and sometimes ignoring the problems or wanting to kind of turn a blind eye to things, not acknowledge the elephant in the room, or we're going to be about solutions, finding ways to improve our lives, our lifestyle, our job, our health, all of that stuff. So you guys have to decide which one of those two camps you're going to want to be in. I pulled a couple cards, which I don't usually do for the monthlies. I'll do it before I kind of write my, kind of spiel, but I had to share it with you guys because it was so incredibly bang on. So I just pulled 3 cards just to give me insight about what the lessons and the themes are going to be for the month of September. The first card that I got was the 7 of Cups. Okay. So if you guys are familiar with the tarot, the Cups does deal with like emotions, intuition. It could represent changing energies within relationships. And the 7 of Cups, as you can see on this card, is kind of being presented with multiple options, multiple choices. It could be talking about kind of like different doors of possibilities that are being, potentially opened and not knowing what you're going to get. In some of the cups, there's a cloaked figure, there's a snake. We see also like a prize, we see a wreath, we see a dragon. So it kind of represents like opening a box and not knowing what you're going to get, and that it could be some kind of like, amazing prize, or it could be something that you were not really thrilled about getting or expecting. And then obviously it's kind of surrounded with clouds. So there is this kind of theme of getting lost in the illusion of choice, or having too many options, or feeling overwhelmed, or not knowing what you're going to choose. I think that's so perfect for the oppositions that we're seeing to planets in Pisces, which can definitely represent having to take a step back and reevaluating something and asking yourself, am I seeing this clearly? You know? So then the second card that I got was the Hanged Man, which is very timely. Because this is the card that is associated with Pisces, and we will be having a lunar eclipse in Pisces. So it's definitely talking about how maybe this lunar eclipse is going to be showing us where maybe the decision is not to take any action right away, right? Not to make a big decision, to sit with it, to kind of see how the events of this month unfold. And it can be representing kind of like this inversion in how we see things. And that could be relationships, the world, our beliefs. This can be putting an emphasis on turning inward and really reflecting and looking for some kind of connection to a higher power. Obviously, you see the crown surrounding the Fool that's hanging upside down, so it does represent enlightenment. But he gets the enlightenment from isolation, seclusion, and also seeing things from a different perspective, and how perspective is going to play a huge role on what we're learning about ourselves, what we're learning about the world. And then the final card that I got, which I think was interesting, was the Ace of Swords. So aces are always new beginnings. It does represent some significant energetic shift. Obviously, many of you guys know we are going to be seeing the equinox taking place in Libra. So this is also very bang on for the energy, where there is a shift from what we have been in, mutable earth, into what's going to be cardinal air. In the Northern Hemisphere, we call this the fall equinox. Those of you guys in the Southern Hemisphere, you'll be experiencing spring. But this is balancing things out. This is equal light and dark. And the Ace of Swords does represent an energy of a new beginning, but it also represents that being initiated through information, communication, intellect, knowledge, contracts, discussions, things of that nature. So swift messages kind of coming in that, you know, are going to give us clarity. This is definitely a card of clarity, especially when the other two cards don't really have a lot of clarity. So I'm anticipating that this is going to be probably pretty bang on with what's going to be happening in September. September is going to be a month where we're seeking more information. We're looking to better understand ourselves and also what's going on out in the world. You know, we will see this ingress into Libra season, which is going to be putting an emphasis on partnerships, you know, diplomacy, you know, being able to be diplomatic with other people, unification in relationships and partnerships, and also reevaluating our relationships to other people. Now, I think it's a good time this month to be asking yourself, what are you avoiding, right? Because definitely the Seven of Cups can talk about, you know, too many options and maybe filling our plate too much or our schedules too much because we're avoiding things that we don't want to do, or we're keeping ourselves distracted, or maybe we're delaying making a decision. But I also feel like, you know, the Virgo new moon is setting us up for this as well. So if you guys are watching this at the beginning of September, we're going to be having this tomorrow. You know, the Virgo new moon is ripe with opportunities to do this. If you've been avoiding making certain changes or making certain commitments to your health, your job, your routines, your habits, this new moon gives us the ability, if we're willing to acknowledge our blocks, or where we're seeing that, you know, we are having some kind of bad habits that are coming up that's affecting our health, it's affecting our stress. And this is a new moon that's ruled by Mercury, right? So what you'll see with the new moon is that Mercury is coming back into its third and final square in the sign of Leo to Uranus and Taurus. So this entire Mercury retrograde has felt probably a little stressful. There's definitely been a few mental breakdowns out there for a lot of us because, you know, the Mercury square Uranus is just a very kind of mentally stressful communication period, but it is intentional with all three squares because it's trying to get us to think outside of the box. Think creatively in Leo. Think about how we can be more bold, or really kind of get in touch with our inner selves and ask ourselves, what's going to make me happy, and what physical, financial value changes with the squares to Uranus and Taurus needs to be made in order to be able to set some of these new goals properly. This new moon will become a full moon lunar eclipse in 2025. So that'll be in the spring of 2025 during Pisces season. So do not sleep on setting intentions for this moon. Now, in 6 months' time, it will be a lunar eclipse in Virgo, and it will feature the moon conjunct the south node. So it is going to be about finally completing, putting an end to bad jobs, bad habits, issues with coworkers, issues with our schedule, all of that stuff. And it will be featuring Mercury, which will be getting ready to go retrograde, or it will be retrograde. I'm not sure. I have to look at the eclipse chart, but I know that Mercury will be retrograding basically from Aries back into Pisces. So that tells me that you can do this the easy way or the hard way. You can make the conscious decision this month to get clear about what your goals are and how you can kind of better situate your life and your habits or your work, and come up with a plan. So that way you can initiate change, and it will actually make the eclipse 6 months from now a whole lot easier for us to navigate and manage. Well, Virgo focuses on our habits and routine, maybe our to-do list, watering the plants, walking the dog, getting our work done. The polarity of Pisces talks a lot about our emotional bodies and our sleeping habits and, our way of managing stress, and if we're getting adequate time to kind of rest and reflect. And sometimes we have to take time alone in order to be able to do this out of our daily routine, out of our schedule. And I think that's really why the hangman was kind of coming up, because it was saying that we can't really see very clearly until we have balance of the mind, body, and the spirit. So we're going to need to see all three of those things kind of get worked on over the next 6 months. Now we're going to see the month of September kick off with 2 very significant retrogrades. All right. So we will be experiencing Uranus turning retrograde, and that's going to go on for about 4 months. We know that Uranus in Taurus is all about shaking up our finances, our resources, our eating habits, our self-esteem, major collective changes with friendships and connections to other people, as well as, Uranus rules these things. So we may be reevaluating relationships. Changes with relationships can be happening. You're going to have to look at where Taurus is in your natal chart. But I will tell you that this is the final Uranus retrograde before Uranus goes direct in about 4 months' time. And then it will be heading towards Gemini. So this is a really good time to really think outside the box, reevaluate, make some changes. We can see when outer planets turn retrograde that there can be really significant themes revolving around that particular planet and topic. So it can be kind of insinuating that there can be some really big kind of financial shakeups coming with that retrograde getting ready to take place. Obviously, that will impact my Aquarius risings and also Taurus risings or Taurus placements, especially if you have any Taurus that are in the later degrees. So kind of like that 28 degrees to about 25 degrees, you guys are going to be feeling that the most. We are also going to be seeing Pluto turn retrograde, and this is going to be a critical time. We've got about 80 days, give or take, of having Pluto back in the sign of Capricorn. This is a once-in-a-lifetime transit, so we will actually not see Pluto back in Capricorn for like nearly 240 years. The United States is feeling the effects of the completion of the Pluto return, so it does make things a little intense in the United States, especially pertaining to government spending, finances, and just the overall state of the economy. But, when we kind of zoom out a little bit, Pluto in Capricorn is going to be the final, play revolving around global power and control. So, when we think of Capricorn, it's about top-down structures, governments, leaders, big business, and Pluto is kind of the big bad wolf, so he deals with crime, manipulation, things that can be particularly brutal and wicked. So Pluto hanging out at 29 degrees, that anaretic degree, which is going to be about the future of power and control and leadership, is going to be very loud. We are also going to see that eventually, not this month, but down the road, Mars and Pluto will oppose. You're going to see that as we're getting closer to October. And that's gonna bring some intensity. So one thing you guys want to know is that in your own lives, Pluto retrograde back into Capricorn is saying, okay, you got about 2 months to work through something. Whatever this something is something that you need to kind of push through or get rid of or finally put an end to. And what it's meant to kind of teach you is how far you've come since 2008. And it's going to show you a lot about your personal empowerment. Obviously most significant for Scorpio risings, also for, Capricorn risings, especially if you have anything in the late degrees of Capricorn, 28, 29 degrees, or the cardinal signs. So if you have 28, 29 degrees of the cardinal signs, you're feeling this square immensely. But in November, we will see Pluto return back to Aquarius. Well, it will stay for the next 20 years or so. So this is a really important time to kind of roll up our sleeves and get to work. It can be really significant for a lot of people when it comes to making big changes to their career, their reputation, and just the way that they are able to kind of tackle difficult problems, because Pluto does like to cause problems. It is about conflict, and sometimes it is about pain and transmuting things and ending things and making way for something new. So if you want more on that, I just put out like a 2-hour webinar on the Pluto retrograde in Capricorn. I talk a little bit about the history of Pluto in Capricorn. We also talk about the archetypes of Saturn, because Pluto's in a Saturn sign. We talk about Pluto, and I give you guys lots of helpful information and insight in how to make the most of the next 2.5 months, so that way you can actually initiate change. I have like a PDF on there for you guys to be able to do weekly, so you can do check-ins with yourself to make sure that you are, moving through each week and doing the necessary things to kind of combat fear and hopefully initiate change by the end of November. So make sure you check that out. It's on the channel. We are going to see an eclipse. So we're already in the energies. We're feeling it. We started feeling it about two weeks ago, but we will be having what I'm calling a sneak peek eclipse. So this will be the very first eclipse taking place in the new series of eclipses that will be in Virgo and Pisces. So on the 17th, we will see a full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces at 25 degrees. Now, this eclipse is, it's a doozy. We are going to see the eclipse actually take place between the Saturn retrograde in Pisces and Neptune retrograde in Pisces. The traditional ruler is Jupiter, and we will see it square Jupiter in Gemini. So Jupiter is going to be a pretty significant focal point, which is really going to be bringing up communication, learning, exchange, information, data, social media. It's going to really put an emphasis on bloggers and people who are writing, and journalists, and news that will be breaking. When I think about this eclipse, it's going to be about unveiling things, right? It's going to be about unveiling things, which is so interesting because this particular card shows that there are things that are being veiled and unveiled in the midst of the Neptunian fog, Very different vibe shift, guys. For the last 2 years, we've had eclipses in the North Node that's been in Aries, which has been direct, bold, quick, initiating, in your face. There has been no qualms revolving around stuff being hidden with Aries, because it can't be hidden and things happen very quickly. But I think that with Pisces, we're dealing with a completely different energy. We are now kind of being immersed into Neptune's land. So we are going into the waves. We're literally having to kind of work with an energy that we're not as familiar with. Now, on one hand, I feel like a lot of us are pretty well prepared for this eclipse, even though North Node eclipses do bring things that we don't see coming. The North Node is talking about what's brand new, futuristic, what we have yet to experience. And sometimes it can be things that are futuristic, like, talking about where the future is going. So it's really easy for a lot of people to go, oh, we're all doomed with Saturn and Neptune and Pisces with this eclipse. Do I think that that's the truth? Not necessarily, but I feel like this may be about disclosure and things that are coming up that are really, really, really otherworldly. And that can be in terms of exploration of the sea, that can be exploration of space, that can be, disclosure and stuff coming out about aliens, that could be a lot of things. But when I think about Pisces, it's screens, right? It's also things that are distorted. Neptune is known for being able to bring in the fog, and it's hard to be able to see things. So it's going to be hard to discern what is real and what's not real. I think that it's also going to bring a lot of inverted situations or distorted situations, right? Where we're like, wait, I thought this was that and that was this. Like, was that wrong? Like, did I read that correctly? What happened to this video? Is that really them? And I do think that, you know, it's hard to understand or comprehend Pisces because Pisces is the end before we have the beginnings. So it's weird that we've been initiating all these new things with eclipses in Aries, and now we're going to be seeing that it's about initiating kind of completions and closure on a global kind of level. This is definitely going to be disorienting for some people. We might feel a little loopy or a little out of it. You know, we may be more emotionally sensitive. We might be more sensitive also to substances, medications, alcohol, drugs. Certainly we see those themes come up when we have the moon transit through Pisces. But this is meant to be unveiling hidden truths. That's what this eclipse is about. And a deep dive into the subconscious and truths that are coming out, either our own truths that we're admitting to ourselves or that we're recognizing or maybe realizing in a dream or in meditation, but also unveiling truths revolving around Saturn and Neptune, you know, the truth revolving around responsibility and things that are hidden and what's trying to be kind of held back or what's being censored. And this has kind of played out already. We've started seeing this, you know, recently in the last week or two. We're seeing major censorship happening in some countries revolving around social media platforms like Rumble and also Twitter. That is Jupiter and Gemini. That is any way that we communicate, any way that we connect, if we are able to bring information, news, videos. We also saw it happening with Telegram, the messaging app. So all of this was taking place while Jupiter was in a square to Saturn. And then we saw a Mercury retrograde that went retrograde in square to Uranus. So shocking and surprising, you know, physical changes. So we're going to see more of this, and eclipses don't have to play out exactly on the day. That's the one thing you guys want to think about. We actually seeded this eclipse during the new moon in Pisces season 6 months ago. I remember telling you guys that when we had the video. And what's really fascinating is I looked through all of the eclipses that will be taking place in Virgo and Pisces. There will be not a single solar eclipse in Pisces, not one. So that in itself tells me something. You know, there is going to be more focus on wrapping stuff up, completing things, closing things out, you know, focusing more on togetherness, peace, compassion, empathy, but also dissolving things that are creating isolation and separation, trying to, I think, abolish anything that is going to be about mistruths or trying to really kind of expose where there is a lot of limitation or blockages. This can also be for you guys in your own life where you're like, I just don't understand. I don't have motivation. I'm hitting a wall. You know, what's going on? And so this is the month that you may start to kind of like gain clarity on some of this stuff. I did do a several-hour webinar on these eclipses that are taking place in September and October. You guys can find the link in the bio right underneath this video description. I have put a lot of work into it. I talk about the 12 signs and I give you guys kind of my insight on how that's going to impact you. And then I also discuss what's going to be happening with each eclipse and the themes and what's kind of going down globally. So if you guys want to check that out, check that out. I will be talking about the eclipses pretty soon on the channel, but I won't be going as in depth into some of this stuff because obviously it has to be kind of like friendly for YouTube. So definitely consider supporting my work if you guys want to hear my hot takes on that. Now we're going to also see some pretty significant mutable T-squares. Planets in Virgo will not just be opposing Saturn where we're kind of feeling stretched. We're also going to see these planets come into square with Jupiter in Gemini. So this means that it's going to make the feelings of stretch bigger. It's also going to create a lot of divide revolving around how we think and how we communicate and perspectives and personal philosophies because that's what Jupiter represents. We are also going to be talking about how this is going to be pretty significantly impacting people's jobs. So where growth in technology, right, Jupiter and Gemini, growth in changes that are going on with communications is impacting the job market for better or for worse. We will also be talking about where information and knowledge with Jupiter and Gemini squaring, both planets in Pisces as well as transiting planets in Virgo. It's important to get the word out that some of these limitations in information can have some pretty negative potential effects on not only people's health, but also healing. the ability to heal and to make sense of what's been going on with some of our health issues and habits. And knowledge is a very powerful thing this month with that Ace of Swords. And I feel like that's Jupiter that's kind of busting in, and it's going to be these really honest and direct and kind of, lots of information wielding bloggers and journalists and independent media and anything revolving around that. So yeah, interesting stuff that's going to be coming up. Remember, Mercury does rule Jupiter, so it's the dispositor of Jupiter. So when Mercury starts coming into Virgo, when it's in its home sign and it opposes Saturn and it squares Jupiter, I think that this is really going to be shining a light on where we need to have some of the brightest minds out there that are telling it like it is, and giving their speeches and their talks and their videos and their interviews, and trying to kind of shine a light on where we need more information about health. And that's what a lot of these eclipses are going to be about, because Pisces is going to be about mental health, it's going to be healing, it's going to be revolving around pharmaceutical companies, hospitals, and prisons, and Virgo is going to be more about the healthcare workers, people who are on the scene, people who are the nurses and the aides and the assistants, and also the impact that that's having on jobs. So we will definitely see a lot of that stuff be coming up with those eclipses over the next 2 years as the North Node moves into these signs in 2025. So just be mindful that as you're seeing planets square Jupiter, what may seem like small issues or small conversations, they can have big effects, big consequences in a good way. It means that you might read a book that changes your whole perspective on productivity. You might learn or, kind of read through an article where somebody is talking about, health and supplements and, natural habits and patterns and things that you can be taking to better kind of affect your health. So I'm curious to see how those squares manifest. We will see Mars move into Cancer, which is going to have its own video. We'll be talking about that this week and going in depth and looking at some of the Mars transits. I will tell you, now is a really good time to look at where Cancer is in your chart, because Mars moving into Cancer is important for a number of reasons. The North Node is in Aries, so it's ruled by Mars. So when Mars changes signs, it is reflecting what's going on with the North Node. Mars is moody when it's in Cancer. It can be quite moody, and we will have Mars retrograde later in the year. It'll turn retrograde in Leo, but we'll see it come back into Cancer, right around the beginning of 2025. Mars is going to spend nearly 6 months in total in the sign of Cancer. And get your Kleenex ready and your boxing gloves, because I feel like with this placement, you never know which one you're going to need. Mars moving through the sign of the moon is definitely going to be causing waves on the home front, and it can bring up some angry tears for some people. It can show us where we need to be more emotionally motivated. A lot of people will be moving or building homes or changing homes or spending time with family or, prepping or protecting their homes. There's going to be lots of talk about home defense, home security, all of that stuff. So we'll talk about it more in depth when we get into my Mars and Cancer transit, but I will tell you that it's important because clearly there's a lot of work to do in this area. It's also going to be fun to watch because the lunar transits are going to be impacting this in a very big way, because now the moon will be connected to Mars and the moon is also connected to the North Node. So we are going to be really focusing on taking action instinctively or intuitively, right? And what our emotions are telling us we should do. Now that could be a good thing or a bad thing. If you know how to respond to things and, when you're having a heated emotional exchange with family or maybe somebody you live with or, anybody, it's going to be about taking a step back and not leading with our emotions, learning not to get ahead of ourselves and kind of burn everything down. But it can also be good for those of us who are more emotionally grounded and we're working through some emotional issues. And we're willing to kind of cut ties with some old emotional habits or with people or things that are creating problems. We'll see some benefits actually with this transit, and we'll recognize that our emotions are coming up because it's stuff we've kind of stuffed down that we haven't dealt with or things we've compartmentalized. And we can use frustration as motivation. We can use our emotions as kind of like a compass to show us like, hey, clearly I'm not happy with this thing. Why is it coming up? Let me deal with that emotion. So we'll talk about that. There's definitely going to be some support because we will see Mars that's going to kind of dance a little bit with Saturn. So I think that's going to give us some stability in the midst of what can be a pretty emotionally tumultuous transit. Look for September's horoscopes also. There is the September 2024 horoscopes that have been out already for about a week or so. So if you haven't seen them, check it out. I talk about all of the most important transits for your sun, moon, or rising sign. And I'm here every Friday. So Friday nights at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, I'm doing live readings. We alternate between tarot and astrology. So if you've got stuff going on around the eclipse, or if you've got a question about your chart, or you just want to come and grab a tarot reading because shift is hitting the fan this month, come and join me. I'd love to hang out with you. All right, so let's get into the week ahead, and then I will show you guys what I kind of made notes of for the month. Just as a general reminder, you can find all of the transits that are the most significant for the month of September in the description below. So you can click that and you will see all of the days that things are going down. Equally, if you want a personalized astrology calendar that you can import directly into your digital calendar on your phone or on your computer, I create those and I sell them on my website. So those are actually available if you check out the calendar tab. So that way you know what's going on with the transits and how it's impacting your natal placements every day. All right, so let's start first with today, the 1st. So happy Sunday to those of you guys who are part of my Sunday crew. It's nice to see you. You guys probably remember from last week, I was telling you that today can get a little hairy, all right? So when we wake up this morning, the moon is in the sign of Leo. We are in a dark moon phase, so we're coming into the new moon. People can be a little crabby, a little grouchy when we're in this phase because things are wrapping up, they're winding down. Now the moon in Leo though is generally pretty warm, affectionate, you know, dramatic. It's got a flair for creativity. And the moon is conjunct Mercury, which is now direct. And this is putting a huge focus on communication, right? The sun is the ruler of Leo. So it's interesting that it's just kind of like, okay, you know, maybe I just got to come out with it, say what I've been waiting to say, or making this announcement, or more focus on creative communication and ideas. Thankfully, you know, it does sextile Jupiter, so it does have a little bit more of like an optimistic flair. Certainly communication can go better. But what we're noticing is that this is also the 3rd trine between Mercury and Chiron. And so much about the Mercury retrograde was not just about getting out of our comfort zone, maybe making changes, you know, reevaluating our hobbies or relationships, but the trines to Chiron were saying it was about being able to get in touch with our inner child or our inner emotions and being able to work through pain and, you know, wounding or where we felt insecure with ourselves or with other people. And this is a really good day for smoothing something over, right? In the morning, especially apologizing, being like, I just want to address this. I got my feelings hurt. I'm sorry. You know, anything like that, because communication that's more heart-centered is going to do very well this morning. And between Mercury and the moon, which wants to talk about its feelings, and the trine to Chiron, we can reflect and recognize like where we can actually do better, where we can grow and learn from some of our experiences, especially if there's been some emotional or kind of communication tension. So that's a sweet little spot that you're going to get pretty much while you guys are watching this first thing in the morning. We are also, you know, I'm loving this day for making plans, moving forward in some way. It's a great day for communication and for sharing. I think with the transits coming later in the day, it gets a little tricky. So the moon will start coming into a square with Uranus. And so by the time you're getting to like the PM hours, you're getting to dinner time, a little bit more difficult to communicate because this is referencing really where Mercury has been squaring Uranus off and on since July. The moon wants, you know, emotional harmony and it wants things to go smoothly. And when the moon came into conjunction with Mercury, you know, we were able to communicate, but now with Moon square Uranus, it feels like the communication tension can be kind of brought up again. So yeah, plans can change essentially. There can be some kind of significant shift that's taking place. I think the one positive is that the moon will sextile Mars. So once again, this is about being like, let's be about solutions, not necessarily about problems. You know, how can we pivot? How can we make a change? We will also see the moon shift into Virgo in the PM hours. So this is now kind of preparing us to get ready for what will be the new moon taking place on September 2nd. And, you know, I feel like this is where we get kind of quiet and things kind of settle out a little bit. Right before that moon shift happens, you're going to see the moon in conjunct Pluto and in conjunct Neptune. So this is that same focal point of where Mercury was doing its retrograde, where it was about being able to like uncover, you know, where we've had some power struggles or where there's been some, you know, shadow stuff coming up or control issues coming up. And also where there's been a tendency to not necessarily see so clearly. So this is going to be an interesting ingress because we may see some of the same themes come up from the Mercury retrograde. And that moon is going to drop tonight into Virgo, and that leads us into Monday morning on the 2nd. Just be advised that both Pluto as well as Uranus will be turning retrograde today, the 1st. So that retrograde is happening. So sometimes when those planets, you know, those outer planets turn retrograde, we see some stuff happen. Well, I mean, we're going to see the moon square Uranus, and we're going to see the moon quincunx Pluto. So it's very likely that we see some themes revolving around, you know, big changes revolving around power, control, government, you know, big changes revolving around technology, energy, things pertaining to the internet, finances in particular with Taurus. All right, so then we're going to take a look at Monday, the 2nd. And when we wake up on the 2nd, we are waking up to the new moon. So you can do your new moon intentions Monday morning, Monday afternoon. Ideally, you want to do this before the moon starts coming into an opposition with Saturn. So we'll take a look at when that's going to be happening. So let's look at that. So you're pretty much good the early morning. The new moon itself is going to be at 11 degrees. Pretty much all day. So it won't be until the evening hours that you will see the moon oppose Saturn. And most of you guys, at least if you're, you know, in the northern hemisphere, you're kind of within those time zones, you're gonna be asleep when the moon opposes Saturn. So such a great day for setting new habits and routines. I mean, it is at an 11, so it is about, you know, where we're going in the future, future jobs, future habit, future health. The challenge here is that it's starting to come into an opposition with Saturn. So immediately after the new moon, you're going to have to hold yourself accountable. And that might mean that you're following your routine, you know, you're changing your habits, you're getting up early, you know, you're holding yourself to a timeline. There will be a sense of this getting checked a little bit later in the week as planets start opposing Saturn. Now, something else that's going to be happening as well is that Mars is coming into a square with Neptune, okay? So you will feel this energy. You're probably feeling it right now, to be honest with you, on Sunday. But Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, this is in the skies. And this is a tricky energy. So if we look at the actual Mars square, Mars is going to square at 29 degrees. And it's right around the time that Neptune is going back to 28 degrees. Okay, so it's going to be 28 and change, 28:59. Technically, most people will call it 29. But Mars, action, drive, motivation, power. You know, it's also about passion. It can be about heat, sports, action. Mars square Neptune is like, we don't know where we're going. We feel like we're swimming in a fishbowl. And like, look at this almost at 29. Look at this almost at 29. Look at Pluto at 29. So these planets all are getting ready to complete something pretty significant. Mars does not just square Neptune where, you know, it feels like the martyr or, oh, why am I doing this? Or what's the purpose? Or what's the point? But it also can be issues where we're feeling like a compass that's just spinning. We're directionless. We feel lost. We're finding it difficult to communicate. There is some sense of misunderstandings or things that are being falsely represented. Certainly, you know, Gemini deals with communication. So this square makes me feel like be very careful with driving. We see a lot of issues with major accidents with drunk driving when Mars squares Neptune. Every single time this happens. And I think even more so within this particular square, because Gemini is vehicles and movement, and Neptune in Pisces can be about drugs and alcohol and not seeing so clearly. So this entire week, guys, be very, very careful, because we're going to see some pretty significant Mars aspects. Equally, this can mean that there's issues with traveling or transportation due to fog, rain, flooding, weather, right? And it's critical because it is happening at almost that 29 degrees. So to see all of those kind of link together tells me that there are some big storms that are on the way. And, you know, the eclipse in Pisces says very much the same thing. But with Mars being the ruler of the North Node and the square to Neptune, there is this sense of like, what's the purpose? What's the point? You know, what am I doing? And we can feel frustrated. We can feel confused. We can feel delayed. Don't make any big, serious decisions or, you know, like surgical procedures under this transit. No, Mars is cutting. Just blindly, you know, traveling to a place without kind of sussing it out or bringing a map, you know, you'll get lost. So be careful with directions, communication, vehicles under this particular transit. It'll be hanging around today. Really, actually, even when it gets into Cancer, we're going to see some critical stuff. But by about Wednesday, it'll kind of calm down a little bit. Now, overnight, that moon is going to come into an opposition with Saturn. So let's look at that. This is still on Monday. And what's interesting is that, oh no, it's coming into Tuesday. I take that back. So this will be Tuesday the 3rd. So we wake up on the 3rd, right after the new moon, and the moon's in opposition to Saturn. So remember how I said you'll get checked? This is like, okay, you know, I did make the commitment to eat better. So I'm getting up early and I'm making my breakfast, or I'm prepping my meals, or I'm going to the gym, or I'm walking the dog, you know, that kind of stuff. There is this sense of, you know, the moon in Virgo being like, I've got to make this change, or I've got this responsibility, or there's this shift that I need to make. Notice Mercury is coming back into the square with Uranus. What changes am I making to my habits so I can be healthy, I can be happy, I can have more time to do the things that I like to do. And so it may require us to kind of think outside of the box a little bit, but a little bit difficult for emotionally relating, because all this Virgo energy is like, let's stay on task, let's get things done. And Saturn and Neptune are like, don't you want to stay in bed? Don't you just want to be like, you know, hidden away? Like, you know, it's easier to just not respond. Don't do it, you know. And for some of us, this season will really show a lot of us where we're doing too much on one side or the other. I've had a whole slew of like clients and also friends that are just like workaholics, and they've all gotten laid out and they've been like sick, you know, the last week, pretty bad. And it's been interesting because when they ask me my input, I'm like, I really think you need to be resting, or I think you're doing too much. And then I see other people who have been very unwilling to facilitate any kind of significant change revolving around their habits or their work. And now they're facing some critical situations because they haven't taken it seriously. And now they're just kind of like, okay, I can either spiral or I can get serious. So you'll see a lot of polarity basically with these transits. Now, as the moon is coming into an opposition with Saturn, it's also starting to come into a square with Jupiter. So this will magnify the need for communication on Tuesday more. This will also be like where there's, you know, information, news, articles, you know, things that are being promoted about needing assistance, helping other people, what you can do to kind of get information and get news out. And we will see on Tuesday Venus coming into conjunction with the South Node. So usually, you know, Venus in Libra, great placement, really awesome transit for beauty, aesthetics, relationships, partnerships, clients. The challenge is with Venus on the South Node, and Venus is the ruler of the South Node, and this is at a 6. It's going to talk about some disharmony that may be coming up in relationships or relationships to jobs or coworkers. Right, Venus at 6 is a health degree. So there's definitely a lot of like airing out issues in relationships with this conjunction. Obviously, we've got 2 other asteroid goddesses here, right? We've got Lilith that's been moving through Libra. So it's not just going to be Venus conjunct the South Node where we are reflecting, we're looking at the past, we're dealing with the past in some capacity or past relationships, but simultaneously, this is also representing the darker side of relationships and where we lose ourselves in relationships, or where we can be too overly committed, or maybe where there's been some fear or reluctance to commit, or, you know, there's something that's kind of coming up from the past that seems tempting in some way. And then we've got Juno on the other side, who is quite the opposite of Lilith. She represents, partnership, marriage, companionship, togetherness, right? Especially, conjunct the South Node, that it's really showing us where there can be a lot of pitfalls that can be coming up for us if we are partnering with the wrong people. And that's not always just in a romantic sense, although Libra is marriage. It can be showing us in a professional sense, in a sense of partnerships and relationships with people out in the world professionally, with therapists. I've heard a lot of people talking this week being like, I'm dumping my therapist. I'm not going anywhere. We've kind of stalled. We're hitting a wall, So that could be happening, especially with oppositions to Saturn and Pisces, medical professionals, mental health professionals. And I think a lot of the planets moving through Virgo, trining Uranus, is going to be a lot of people being like, I'm taking matters in my own hands. I don't want to be on medications. I want to find solutions for my health. I'm seeing an herbalist. I'm working with a naturopath. I'm working with a trainer. Things that are going to be more, this is how you do it, not Saturn and Neptune and Pisces. That's like, well, I read the results. I'm not going to tell you what they mean. Just take this medication. You're good. So you're going to see a lot more people who are going to be incentivized to fix things on their own. Granted, Libra season, you will see opportunities, especially with the eclipse in October, to partner with people. Just right now, there is a sense of taking a step back away from things where we're not getting clarity, not getting what we need, not getting a sense of direction. And we're going, okay, we got to find a new way. So we must educate ourselves. Venus on the South Node, yes, right? You can hear from people from the past. You can have dreams about old partners. You could be reflecting or reminiscing on the past in some way. Sure, that can definitely happen. Dealing with past relationships, past relationship karma, pretty common. Mars this day will be quincunx Pluto. So now that it's coming out of the square with Neptune, where we're not really sure where that, confusion is coming from, or, maybe we're just feeling a little on edge and antsy because we have some feeling that something is coming. Then Mars quincunxes Pluto, and that tells me that this is going to be about the actions that individuals, Aries, is taking when it comes to their local communities, when it comes to writing, learning, sharing, communicating, putting information out. And it's challenging Pluto. It's basically saying, I'm going to call you out for your shady behavior. This is going to be about brave individuals who are willing to speak their mind and talk about some of the issues I think that have been going on with censorship, which has become a rampant thing. But now I think with Pluto in 29 degrees, a lot of the corruption and a lot of the crimes and things that are being committed are going to be more in your face, and it's going to be more, we don't really care. This is the way that it's going to go. And so people are going to push back against that. I look at Mercury being the dispositor here, and Mercury squaring Uranus, which means, there is still one more curveball coming this week with the Mercury-Uranus square, which is going to be about people kind of losing their mind about some kind of news or information that's been coming out revolving around Taurus things, food, right? There's a reason why everybody's suddenly Googling seed oils, and they're like, what are seed oils? And like, what's this? And how is this affecting my health? And people are asking questions about effects on the environment and, chemtrails and, how people are kind of eating and the impact that it's having on our bodies, our minds, right? Mercury. And so that's been such a beautiful thing to watch as Mercury has squared Uranus. But now I think there is going to be even more, where it's not just going to even be about, starting to ask these questions. It's going to be, well, where people are saying, why is it we can't share this information? Or why is it that, we can't say certain things? Then, people are going to kind of lose their mind again a little bit this week. So think back to what happened with the full moon in Capricorn in the third week of July. Think back to what happened in early August when we saw Mercury and Uranus square. Electrical issues, communication issues. Back stuff up, guys, because this post shadow is still going to be kind of wonky, and it's definitely a good time to make sure that you have any important files saved. If you need to kind of save stuff to the cloud, if you need to get an extra hard drive out, if you need to back stuff up, do all of that stuff, because I definitely think once Mercury squares Uranus again, and then eventually down the road when it opposes Saturn, we could definitely see some communication issues. Now, what else on the 3rd? That's pretty much it. We're not really missing anything. So the Venus South Node connection, that'll be playing out all day. We will see the moon come out of the opposition with Saturn. We will see the moon square Jupiter. Venus conjuncts the south node at night. And then the day is going to wrap up on Tuesday with the moon starting to come into an opposition with Neptune, square Mars. Wow, could there be some crazy dreams on Tuesday night, huh? Looking at the moon, 29, square Mars, 29, squares Neptune. You know, this makes me feel like there is something that we may wake up and have to write down, something we hear in a dream or some kind of intuitive hit we have in a meditation. You know, Mars square Neptune is talking about where some of our emotions and frustrations and things might be kind of coming out in, you know, some subconscious ways. And then also big storms Tuesday into Wednesday with all of these planets hitting the late degrees, big potential storm issues. All right, so this is going to take us into the 4th, which is Wednesday morning. And we wake up in the morning and the moon's in opposition to Neptune. So this is the day that you want to make sure you're staying on task, making sure you're waking up, getting your stuff done, committing to your goals. If you can do that and you can avoid the pitfalls of Neptune, like oversleeping or waking up and drinking or drugging or whatever, you have a lot of power here. Moon trine Uranus, where you can make positive change, both physically as well as like financially. And moon trine Pluto. What a powerful morning the 4th is. I like that. The only downside is that we're still stuck in the Mars square Neptune energy. So it's starting to fade, but there is still some confusion here with the moon square Mars. This is not a morning on the 4th on Wednesday to get up late and rush to work. There can and probably will be accidents. There can also be things that can be very distracting. So if you're on a headset, if you're using a phone, if you're texting, all that stuff, don't be doing that stuff ever, but especially this week, because it's going to create much more of a likelihood of there being accidents, right? Virgo is about accidents. And this can also be where like somebody's struggling, you know, on Wednesday morning because they're trying to be very detail oriented and, you know, communicating, and somebody's like rushing and they don't see where they're going. I mean, like crazy stuff's happening with these planets in Pisces. I'm like seeing people that are like walking, you know, like they're like walking with their phone and, you know, they're at what would be like a stoplight and they're not even looking for oncoming traffic. They're just so busy texting or looking at a screen that they're just like walking through a crosswalk where, you know, people have a green light. Like crazy stuff like that. People getting hit by cars on bikes, you know, pedestrians getting hit. I've seen a lot of this stuff recently. So just be really careful out there and make sure you're kind of looking around, because there are going to be some people that are like in Neptune land and they're not going to be paying attention, or they're going to be crying while they're driving, or they're going to be under the influence. And yeah, obviously touch wood, but watch what happens. We're going to see some significant stuff like this. Mars also deals with attacks, and I don't like giving energy to this, but Mars square Neptune makes me feel like there could be issues with gases. Issues with like spraying gases, or it could be like tear gas. We could see that if there's some kind of like riot or some kind of like group of people who are protesting or demonstrating in some way. I wonder if this is also kind of connected to some of the things that we've been seeing in the news recently for some of the extermination methods that they're using for the mosquitoes. You know, it's happening in New York. I don't live there, but I'm seeing it where they're like literally telling people like, stay indoors, you know, wait till we're done driving through your neighborhood, spraying this unknown, you know, gas, right? This is very Mars square Neptune in the neighborhood, in a car, spraying fog, you know, because, oh, it's for your health, right? Call me a conspiracy theorist, but something stinks. Something's fishy here, because I'm personally not convinced. You know, I don't doubt that the you know, issues with the mosquito diseases are real. I mean, we know that EEE is, you know, potentially fatal, mosquito disease, and also West Nile and all that stuff. But yeah, we're coming to the end of summer, guys. All right, like mosquitoes thrive in warm weather. So if this is going to be the potential next pandemic, I don't necessarily think it makes sense to me, but I'm not a scientist. I can just tell you that I know that those bugs thrive in the warmer weather months. I have concerns about any haze, fog, anything that's being sprayed right now. So maybe check your local like weather index for what's going on with your air quality. You know, make sure you're checking your air filters. You know, take care of everything like that, because I do think that we're going to see some weird stuff that's going to start happening from this square, and it'll probably start presenting itself anytime from the eclipse to the end of Virgo season. All right, so midday, moon's going to enter Libra right here. And total vibe shift, moon's in Libra, you know, right before the end, we talked about how it trine Pluto, so it's about power. You know, the moon in Libra with the south node is an interesting one because I feel like this is another transit where on Wednesday night, more of dealing with past relationships, and the moon's going to hit the south node, so we can get kind of emotional and moody, and there is some kind of emotional clearing, and we realize, on one hand, I want to do away with this, you know, I don't need this anymore, this isn't working for me, this is where I've been. And then on the other hand, you know, it can be about us emotionally being like what I've lost, what I no longer have, who I'm not friends with, who I'm not partnering with anymore, the client that I lost. So that's kind of going on. Guys, we're going to see a lot of relationship changes. We're going to see a lot of it. You know, the Pisces lunar eclipse is about emotional completions and endings. The solar eclipse in Aries in Libra in October is about, you know, new beginnings in relationships as long as we've gone through the clearing. Do not underestimate how much there can be relationship disruption with South Node Venus and also with the moon hitting this on the 4th. So we're still dealing with some past issues. Mars is also now in Cancer. So when the moon goes into Libra, it immediately starts squaring Mars. So some of the emotional, you know, relationship disturbances can quite literally come from changes in the home environment, changes with the family, a fight with a relative, you know, partner kind of disrupting the home, or somebody that you live with, like a roommate or someone, you know, causing some bothersome things that is triggering some relationship stuff, right? And with Mars in Cancer, we'll see this for about 6 weeks, and then at the beginning of December, you know, end of November, beginning of December, it's going to go into Leo, and then it's going to backtrack and it's going to retrograde through Cancer again. So you want to know where Cancer is in your chart, which house, right? Aries is ruled by Mars. So we are taking action, Mars, emotionally, we're feeling emotionally incentivized to do something. On one hand, you know, I think it's probably going to be good for Cancer placements. Just be mindful you're going to be like hell on wheels for a little bit. You'll be motivated, right, to get things done. And you may be a little bit more temperamental, but you'll be motivated if you're a Cancer rising. Aries and Scorpio, you guys are going to feel this change the most. But everybody needs to know, because the North Node is kind of talking about where we're going. So we're going to have to take some kind of action in the Cancer area of our life over the next few months to be able to better kind of come into the purpose and what we're kind of evolving into with the North Node in Aries. I feel like Mars in Cancer is like boiling water. You know, similar to Mars and Scorpio, but Scorpio can navigate that better because it's already used to being kind of like full of piss and vinegar. So I feel like Mars in Cancer, remember, it's a crab, it walks sideways, it zigzags. So you never know what you're going to get. One minute it's fine, the next minute it's not. And similar to the lunar cycle, the moon, right, is the ruler of Cancer. You know, sometimes it's dark, sometimes it's full, and it's changing every 2.5, 3 days, which means we are constantly changing our mood. So the moon is going to heavily influence this Mars transit. So it'll be interesting to watch just the moon hitting the South Node Venus, squaring Mars, being like, you know what, I no longer want to live here anymore. You know, and then the relationship changes begin. So that can happen for some people. It is going to make Mars the focal point of a square right off the bat. So be mindful that there can definitely be some testiness with home, family, roommates, relationships, stuff like that taking place on the 4th. And that'll now take us into the 5th, which will be Thursday. And when we wake up in the morning, the moon is still in Libra. At least the moon is now like hovering around Venus and Juno. So it can bring opportunities for better harmony and kind of like diplomacy and working together. Still not crazy about seeing the moon, Lilith, Juno. I mean, one thing I talked about in my eclipse webinar about the solar eclipse in Libra in October was that it was going to be a South Node eclipse, so there was going to be clearing. It's at a 10, so it's long-standing issues in relationships. So long relationships and people have been together for a while might actually have a lot of change. It features Venus in Scorpio at an 11, which is a divorce degree. And we're going to see Juno, the wife, and Lilith, which is basically the other woman, or the kind of like the prostitute, you know, or the sex worker, in conjunction to this particular eclipse. So we're going to see a lot of like, well, you know, what do we want in relationships and what is changing in relationships, especially in terms of intimacy? And is there disruption in relationships because we're not being honest and truthful with partners? Actually, in both eclipses, you're going to see, you know, first with the Pisces eclipse, we will see Venus quincunx Saturn. And then with the eclipse in Libra, we're going to see the eclipse that will also quincunx Saturn. So all of the things that are actually keeping us from unity and from partnership and diplomacy, right? All of the hidden things. And Saturn in Pisces is not just the big bad government. It's, you know, the things that we're watching when our partners aren't around, the things that we're feeling, or the things that we don't tell them, the, you know, little omissions, and also a tendency to not, you know, want to recognize when some cycles are done and just kind of staying in it, you know, and not clearing the karma. So there's going to be a lot of relationship changes that are going to happen, and you guys are going to start feeling that, I think, this week. So on the 5th, the only other thing that you're really going to see, other than this kind of, I guess, pile up in Libra, is you're going to start now feeling the Mercury square Uranus again, and you're going to start feeling the Sun opposed Saturn. Neither one of those are exact yet, but that's really the only other thing that's happening. Later in the day, the moon will trine Jupiter, so there is an opportunity for like a mood shift, uplifting, feeling a little bit more kind of relationship, partnership oriented. Communication, you know, can be much better here. Although the moon will quincunx Saturn, so it's saying, well, you know, clear communication, we can kind of get to the bottom of everything, keeping an open mind instead of just like shutting down, right? Moon quincunx Saturn is like where we isolate ourselves and we separate ourselves from other people. We don't give people the opportunity to partner and work with us. So then this will take us into Friday the 6th. And first thing in the morning, the moon's going to oppose Chiron. So there can be some action taking place with clients, relationships, partnerships, one-on-one relationships. That's triggering our own personal healing lesson or crisis. 22 is definitely revolving around older issues, old problems, older couples, old relationships. And, you know, still in a trine of Jupiter, so you guys can work through it, but there is a building T-square now kind of taking place with Pluto. So, you know, we may actually, rather than staying in our own kind of isolated hurt kind of, you know, place where we're like, I don't want to talk to you, leave me alone, you know, Chiron retrograde in Aries. The moon is saying, no, we have to work together. We have to work through issues. We can't just, you know, decide to not have discourse. Discourse is actually a healthy thing. It can help you learn how to, you know, overcome some of your differences and learn how to work through things rather than just kind of checking out. A lot of people this week are going to want to check out. That's kind of the feeling that I get with Venus conjunct the South Node, you know, the moon in opposition to Chiron, Sun opposing Saturn. Some people are going to be like, screw it, this isn't worth my time, I'm done. And you can throw in the towel if you want, if that's what you want to do. My concern is for a lot of people, if they do that, then the Pisces eclipse is going to be like, well, why didn't you try to fix it? Why didn't you come back? Like, why didn't you call me? Like, you know, people are going to be upset and they're going to be all in their feelings, and then they're going to have bad habits and patterns that can come up because they just assume that everybody's just going to keep coming back and going through the motions with them. And people are going to become a lot less tolerant of that in the next month with some of the squares between Libra and Capricorn. So be mindful. Some of you guys are already kind of treading on thin ice. All right, so we've got the moon in opposition to Chiron. We are going to see on this day the third and final Mercury square Uranus. So mark your calendars for Friday. Issues with computers, communications, travel, that may happen. Remember, right, this will be at 27. So computers, cell phones, cars, traveling, that kind of stuff. I think that's where it's most likely to hit. And it's going to be in the PM hours that the square will happen. So it's going to be Friday night. And this could quite literally be like miscommunication with friends, you know, misunderstanding with friends, literally, because it's communication 27 and it's squaring Uranus, which could be friendships. And this could cause a lot of drama right as the moon is squaring Pluto. Oof, Friday night drama. I definitely think that's going to happen. Moon comes out of Libra in the late PM hours, goes into Scorpio. And it will square Pluto overnight, so relationship power issues. So if you have some drama with somebody on Friday, just let it ride, let it go. You know, be better to handle it when you have a better Mercury transit. And then we wake up on the 7th in the morning, which is Saturday, and the moon is in Scorpio, and off the bat, it immediately trines Mars. So at least it has an outlet. You know, whenever the moon's in Scorpio, it's like, ah, you know, everybody wakes up and they're like angry crying, or they're purging, or they're, you know, they're going through some tummy issues or some digestive issues, like pretty common. And the moon, at least in trine to Mars, not only is it a harmonious aspect where it's like, ooh, these are some yucky feelings. Okay, I'm going to do something about it. But Mars is in the moon sign, the moon's in the Mars sign. It's basically, it's mutual reception. So it's saying they're saying the same thing. Oh, you're pissed off because, you know, your emotions are getting the better of you. Same thing with Mars in Cancer and moon in Scorpio. When the moon trines Mars, we feel emotionally motivated, right? And Scorpio is about change. Mars is about cutting, purging. So I really feel like Saturday morning is a day where, be mindful, we can be very moody and we want to be sitting with our feelings and our emotions and being like, okay, I feel this. I'm going to feel my way through this, but I know that communication is still a little rocky. So let me give myself some time to just think about this. And the moon will start coming into a trine with Saturn right when the sun is opposing Saturn. Wow. If there's drama Friday night, I would say it's going to be better to handle it when Mercury is in Virgo, like maybe the beginning of the week, next week, you know, or the end of the weekend. Let's see. And the moon is going to be in better aspect as well, because watch what's going to happen. So this is Saturday morning. So the Uranus square happens. The moon's going to start coming into a sextile with the sun in Virgo. So it's building from the new moon. And this is now going to lead us to Sunday, which is the 8th. And at least on Sunday morning, we have the moon trine Saturn, right? And look, the sun opposes Saturn. So I think if you have issues Friday, I would say try not to work through it or discuss it or any of that stuff, if at all, until Sunday. I think that's going to be a better time. You've sat with it, you've moved through the feelings, and you've reflected on it, and now you know what action you're going to take, what boundaries you're going to take, what you're going to end, what you're going to kind of complete. Now, the sun in opposition to Saturn, we feel like there's a delay, there's a setback. Look at this, 16. This is a Cancer degree. This is about the moon. It's about home. It's about family. Some of you guys are like, that's it, I'm moving, you know, or it's time to move to another city or another state, or that's it, you know, it's time to kind of get stuff out of the house, or we need to put the house up for sale, or, you know, it's time to move out of my parents' house. That stuff's kind of coming up. And I really feel like a lot of the Mars square, the nodes, will very much be a lot of the same thing. So what you'll see on Sunday the 8th is the moon trine Saturn, so moods and emotions can stabilize. We have a better understanding once we've reflected. And you will see actually happening later in the day, Mercury will go into Virgo. Might actually be late at night. Yeah. So when you wake up on Monday the 9th, Mercury will be in Virgo. So communication is going to ease up a little bit, but man, things can get a little heated there on Friday. So just keep that in mind. All right, so let me take you guys through the other transits that I think that are going to be important this month. Probably the first one would be on the 11th. And this is going to be Mercury now back in Virgo, so it's in its domicile. And it's going to sextile Mars. So this is where we are able to be organized, we have better routines, we have more clarity about our schedule, our health, our responsibility, our work, and we can put that to work with Mars, and we feel emotionally motivated. Like, this is like a Virgo or a sixth house, you know, placements like fantasy. Like, if Mars in Cancer has taught me anything, or Mars going through the 4th house has taught me anything, it's that I need to have a to-do list. I need to have things to do around the house. If I have stuff to do, then there's going to be less issues. If I got to move around furniture and clean things and organize stuff that I haven't, you know, in a long time, or if I need to gut closets or things like that, that keeps me busy. Staying busy and having an agenda and something to work on within the home is going to keep there from being any kind of like friction, you know? So, you know, Virgo wants to organize, clean, and schedule stuff. So that sextile is really wonderful on the 11th for home improvements, doing any kind of, you know, fix-it projects. If you need to clean anything, organize anything, take some kind of action at home, good time to do it. Even if you have to do it on your own, it's a good time to do it. And this is also going to enhance communication, because we're going to feel emotionally driven to want to kind of communicate and come up with a plan. On the 12th of the month, you will see, we will have the Sun in Virgo square Jupiter in Gemini, and it's going to be at 20. Sun square Jupiter is not a bad transit. We have a tendency to I guess, be like overly confident, right? That's like, yes, I can overcome this. I can do this. And what's nice is it's after the Sun opposed Saturn earlier in the month. So where the Sun was in opposition to Saturn, kind of the end of this week, there's this feeling of like, I can't communicate. I can't get my head around that. It's not possible. And then like we actually keep at it. We're consistent, right? It takes, 21 days to make or break a habit. So you got to keep doing it. Then the Sun starts to square Jupiter and we're like, oh, maybe it is possible. And Mercury is the ruler of both of them, and it's sextile Mars. So then you have yet another day that's like, yes, it is possible to work through our emotions. It is possible to relocate. We can, clean out the garage, and everybody's kind of getting in on it together, right? So great transit for being really productive, the 11th and the 12th. I really like that. But we can blow situations out of proportion, and it's, at a 20, so it is about transformation. So it's like change can be good, how we approach change and how we look at change. This is also going to be about jobs, and this is going to be about communication. So it can be that things are being made to look better than they really are, or people are kind of fluffing things or fabricating things a little bit. Like, look at how, everybody has seen like a little kid clean their room. They're like, look, I cleaned my room, and you can see like stuff under the bed and like hanging out of the drawers in the closet. It could be this sense of being like, did you actually make it look better, or did you really organize things, or are you just trying to make it look good? So there can be some over kind of embellishing of what we've really improved. And the question is are you really doing the work, All right, on the 14th, you'll see Venus in Libra trine Jupiter in Gemini. This is one of the better transits all month. Okay, the 14th. Venus in Libra, love, beauty, harmony, relationships, socializing, trine to Jupiter in Gemini, which is about traveling, communication, learning, joy. It doesn't matter if you don't have something going on this day. This is a really good day if you're like wanting to plan a trip with a partner, if you are wanting to send an email out to a new client, if you're wanting to put out new products, if you're wanting to improve your relationships or even your beauty, if you want to work with like a new stylist, anything that's about collaborating and working with other people, use the 14th. And like, let's say that you have events that you have to plan later in the year, you can start doing it on this day. On this day, the moon will also be hanging out in Aquarius. So you're gonna see a grand air trine. So I think it's really wonderful for planning parties and events and things. Mercury's out of shadow at this point, so you have the opportunity to be able to kind of like cement plans a little bit more concretely, to see friends and things like that as well. It's like a very social aspect. So really good aspect on the 14th. On the 15th of the month, you're going to see Mars square the North and South node. And I've been thinking a lot about this, primarily because in some of my lives, it's come up for a lot of people, and it has seemed like a very critical kind of turning point. The North and the South node are not planets, right? Some Vedic astrologers would argue that they're shadow planets because they're pretty potent parts in the sky, but they are ruled by the moon, okay? So it talks about where we're coming from and where we're going. When a planet squares the nodes in evolutionary astrology, which is what I originally studied, it represents kind of like a moment where there's free will involved. Right? A lot of people will look at transits and go, well, this will happen on this day and this will happen on that day. But one of the few days that we can't actually predict very well is when planets square the nodes, because it means that you have the ability to create change. And Mars is going to be at 6 degrees of Cancer, squaring the North node and the South node. So it means that some kind of action, emotional step, change in your home, change in your family, something may happen that is going to have a pretty significant effect on things moving forward, the trajectory of both your Cancer house and your Mars house, and Aries. So those two houses are being affected. I look at where is the moon. On this day, the moon is going to be in Aquarius trining Venus. It's also going to be trining Jupiter. So it just so happens that the 14th and the 15th, when we're experiencing this grand air trine, which is about working together, communicating, starting a group, bringing together a group of friends, having a celebration, having a party, inviting people, can actually positively influence some kind of movement, right? Join us, come be with us. We want to collaborate with you, that kind of thing. Mars is at a 6. And 6s are not easy to deal with in degree astrology because it's a Virgo degree. So I'll read to you what 6s are about, and then I'll read to you the Sabian symbol, which, just a preview, it's actually a pretty good symbol. I'm not worried about it. So 6 degrees in astrology. It's work, to work, workplace, colleagues, co-workers, employees, health, illness, health center, general practitioner, everything associated with health, healthy way of life, service industry, customers, clients, to request services, status, renting, subtenants, veterinary sciences, domestic animals, pets, to analyze, like chess, step-parents, clothes, aunts, uncles, stomach, tea, honeybees, and beehives. Now, in the sign of Cancer, I think it's going to be more working from home, working on our emotions, working with our family, working towards some of our goals, right? Of what we want in the future, Moon trine Venus and Jupiter. Family events can be planned then. I think it would go very well. But you guys know I'm going to read to you the Sabian symbols. So we're going to read 7 of Cancer because we round up. And this is one of my favorite Sabian symbols. Cancer 7, 2 fairies on a moonlit night. The keyword is unifying magic. The symbol speaks to transformation, lightness of heart, the need of every individual to take a break and do something restful and relaxing when functioning under stress or strain. The image of 2 fairies on a moonlit night alludes to the healing power of nature and the hidden unifying magic behind all things. The emphasis here is on imagination and as a springboard to self-realization, on a quiet reflection as the path to understanding and inner peace. At a practical level, this may indicate granting a wish. At its highest, it represents intuitive awareness of what needs to be done in order to maintain proper balance or restore a situation through wholeness. Watch for a refusal to deal with reality or escape through fantasy or denial. The accent is on magic, release from pressure and stress, or healing of some situation or condition that brings welcome relief. Romance is in the air. Your greatest advantage lies in using your creativity and imagination and following your intuition. Believe in miracles. Guard against refusing to look at a situation as it really is or telling yourself it will go away if you just refuse to recognize it. Don't let someone pull the wool over your eyes by telling you what you want to hear. Stepping stones is imagination, magic, illusion, romance, wishes, dreams, vision, transcendence, and inspiration. What's interesting is that the 6th degree, which I will read to you because I feel like it applies as well, says this: game birds feathering their nests. The theme is group dynamics. The symbol speaks to group spirit and satisfaction that can be found in learning how to go with the flow and use the natural course of things to your best advantage. The image of game birds feathering their nest depicts building of a community, and it dramatizes opportunities for developing skills and talents that are needed in any group, project, or cooperative division of labor. More importantly, it alludes to pride, self-esteem, and the importance of being part of the process. Every individual needs to know that he has his or her own task or special role to play, and that he is respected and appreciated for having done a good job. At its highest, it represents remarkable gifts for identifying and assuming responsibilities for the tasks in life that present the greatest potential for personal growth. Watch for insecurity and unwillingness to assume responsibility or work independently. The accent is on improving the home or community. Your greatest advantage lies in making a group effort or dividing up responsibilities for some important project and each person doing what they do best. Cooperation is key. Guard against making yourself miserable by worrying about what you don't have rather than enjoying what you do have. So while you're going through some of these transits with Mars square the nodes, it's about taking some kind of action to make a situation better, but by bringing together the communities to fix things, bringing together the right people, calling the right friends. And it's so wonderful to see that trine between the moon, Jupiter, and Venus. So really big day that's happening on the 15th. On the 17th, we have the eclipse. So this will be the first eclipse, like I said, sneak peek eclipse. It's close enough to the north node that it's picking up the north node. It is between Saturn, which is restricting and limiting, which is retrograde, and Neptune, which is kind of illusions and emotions and, kind of feelings, inspiration. And it opposes the sun, and it squares Jupiter. Jupiter is the prime focal point. And if you look at this, Mercury is the dispositor of Jupiter. Mercury is opposed Saturn. This is going to be about communication issues, guys. This is going to be about job changes. This is going to be about health changes. And, you know, when we have full moons in Pisces and when we have lunar eclipse in Pisces, people there are some people that cannot deal with reality. They cannot deal with the fact that reality can be hard to find, or the truth is hard to find. We have more people drinking, drugging, using, emotionally sensitive. This is a time where we have to really be grounded. We have to be grounded in reality. If you guys caught my video that I did on the horoscopes, I talk a lot about how both the sun as well as Mercury will go through the gauntlet this month, and they will oppose Saturn, where they have to say, okay, I'm stepping away from this thing. It's not helping me. And then they will come into a trine with Uranus, where they say, okay, I will make this change. Then they will oppose Neptune, where they'll recognize that what they thought was giving them safety or security is a falsehood, or it's something that, you know, was not supporting, or it was not healthy, or it was a dead end. And then we wrap up with the Sun and Mercury trining Pluto, which will be empowering and feeling like we have more strength and control. We're able to overcome problems with work and our career and our status. And the only way out of this kind of Pisces pandemonium is saying, you know what, this is not real, or this is not my reality. Pisces rules the feet. It rules the immune system. It's going to be connected to healthcare, and it's going to be about mental health issues, and it's going to be a lot about immigration and a lot about weather events and things where the sea and water and flooding is impacting things. It's definitely, this eclipse cycle is tied to future potential health-related issues like pandemics, which we will not see play out more until spring of 2025. But this particular degree, 25 degrees, is where Saturn will hit this degree, the North Node will hit this degree, Venus will retrograde over this degree, you know, Mercury will retrograde over this degree, March and April of 2025. So this eclipse is not just this day. This eclipse will play out in 6 months in a very big way, especially in regards to health and issues revolving around isolation, hospitals, right? And then we have the Libra eclipse, which will happen in October, which is going to be happening at 10 degrees. And when Venus and Mercury start their retrograde in Aries, it will be at 9 degrees of Aries. So both of these eclipses have legs. We're going to see them continue to unfold throughout time. But even this Mars square is a part of this eclipse, right? And the sun opposing Neptune, being like, that's not what I think it was, or that's kind of shady. And there is definitely this feeling with an eclipse. If we look at it from the perspective of mundane astrology, the moon in Pisces conjunct Saturn and Neptune is going to be people being like, I can't handle what's going on right now. Or, oh my God, it's raining so much. What are we going to do? We're having issues with our homes, or there's major storms. I think we're going to see major hurricane season, big time, right around the time of this eclipse. Within the eclipse to about, I would say, mid-October. But this is also our subconscious being overwhelmed and flooded. And things don't make sense in Pisces. All we know is that we have to learn how to better kind of deal with our emotions and come to terms with the things that we need to let go of, and also recognize that there can be lots of illusions that are going on. And so what we're searching for in all of this is the truth, right? Because that's what Jupiter is. So it's squaring that. And Mercury is trying to bring information out, and it's trying to bring support and help and, you know, people who can get in. But that eclipse conjunct Saturn is putting a real highlight on leadership and how leadership is or is not serving the public, and whether or not they're tending and giving the people what they need. Pisces is going to be about water, not just in a sense of flooding, but it's also going to be about water, health of water, mandates revolving around medication and testing of water. And that's going to be a really big theme. You guys will see as, you know, Saturn and Neptune continue to kind of dance with each other between Pisces and Aries. So yeah, that eclipse is going to be an interesting one, because it's definitely giving us a sneak peek of eventually what we're going to be dealing with in the spring of next year. On the 18th, we're going to see the Mercury-Saturn opposition, which is not a great day for communication. It's not a great day for getting people to return your phone call, respond to your email. There can definitely be some difference of opinion. This can also feel where we're being blocked or we're being limited from communicating. That's a big theme. which is already kind of going on with, you know, Mercury when it was, you know, coming into retrograde and it was actually squaring Uranus. So now it's going to square Jupiter. So I think it's going to be harder to find certain information or get access or be able to go to certain places because this is ruled by Jupiter. See, so it's going to first oppose Saturn. So it might mean that there's news breaking around the 18th and they're trying to kind of hold back on the news cycle, and then something actually breaks out sooner than anticipated. That's kind of the feeling that I get. And then we find out anyway when Mercury squares Jupiter. All right, so then on the 19th, we are going to see the Sun trine Uranus. So this is where we can make change. Very powerful couple days when the Sun trines Uranus, when it trines Pluto, when it opposes Neptune. This is going to be about people being like, yeah, I'm listening to my gut here, or, you know, I'm not going to necessarily believe what I'm being told, and some kind of significant changes, either physically, financially, or with food or resources or land. Then we're going to see on the 20th, then the Sun will oppose Neptune. So that was that whole obstacle course that I was talking about. If you guys watch the horoscopes, you'll see what I'm talking about. And when the Sun opposes Neptune, clarity issues, miscommunication issues, not seeing things the way that we necessarily should, things that could be manipulated. Sun Mercury in Virgo is very strong. It's very detail oriented. And it's like, no, these are the facts. This is the data. You know, this is the information. And then Saturn and Neptune is like where people don't talk, they don't share, they don't disclose, they hide away, they don't kind of show up. And once again, it's not all about leadership, but Saturn is in Pisces. So we see these oppositions to Saturn where if there isn't leadership, if there isn't a good boss at work, if there isn't a solid structure, a plan, if we don't have timing, if we don't have the necessary kind of implemented structures, then things dissolve. And that's what we start to see when the Sun opposes Neptune and Mercury starts to dissolve. I think a lot of it's going to be revolving around some of the narratives with health, some of the narratives with jobs. You know, we're already starting to see this with how people are viewing food, and they're starting to put two and two together, and they're recognizing, oh, if I eat a certain way, I stay on certain medications. We're not really learning a lot about health and medicine. You know, something I've been learning a lot about is just, I've been watching a lot of interviews where people are talking about who have gone through medical school, just the lack of education with diet and dietary stuff. Yes, we have dietitians, but I'm talking about general practitioners, not really totally understanding, what is necessary to promote good health and habits. We're seeing certain, doctors that are making recommendations for people staying on diets that are only going to perpetually keep them on medications. We're finding out that the, big food and big pharma are heavily intertwined, and that they have been essentially paying off, people who have been responsible for teaching health and habits for decades in the United States, which has been, I think, very, very unfortunate, because it's led to essentially a pandemic of sick people and people who don't know how to eat, and they also don't know how to take care of themselves. So we're going to see all of these themes that are going to start becoming up because of the oppositions in these signs. So what's interesting is that the way out of it is, okay, we make a change, right? A value change. We're shopping differently, we're spending differently. We're making it a priority to have better habits. And then the trine to Pluto is going to be like how this is like overcoming, the power issues. And also the impact that might have on big companies that, have been, kind of the big cereal companies, the bread companies, the sweets, the fast food, all that stuff, which, by the way, is all heavily intertwined through lobbying with, representatives and people who are in office. All of that is all incestuous, in my opinion. So perhaps a lot of this is going to be about people starting to kind of connect the dots and realizing what is and isn't healthy for them this month. And a lot of that stemming from, I think the eclipse, personally. Then we're going to see on the 20th, so the Sun will oppose Neptune, not a day for clarity, all right? And it's a day where we can be feeling a little lost. We can be feeling a little bit more emotional and also influenced and creative and a little bit artsy too, especially with the trine to Pluto. Then on the 21st, we're going to see the Sun trine Pluto happen at 29. Okay, 29. And then we are going to see on the 22nd, Venus hits 29 and squares Pluto. My goddess, 29. Venus at 29 degrees is the mark of upsetting the scales, imbalance in relationships, critical turning points in relationships. And the square to Pluto is where love can conquer hate and fear. Partnership and diplomacy and law can challenge corruption, where strength in romantic relationships can overcome long-standing issues and power struggles. Venus will quincunx Neptune right before that happens, but this is interesting because this is going to be the day of the, this will be the equinox. So if you look at this, the sun enters into Libra right here. So it's going to be early morning on September 22nd. So this will be fall equinox. And we can look at this chart and it'll tell us what's going to happen for the next 3 months. So until we get to the winter solstice in December, obviously putting an emphasis on partnerships and relationship, but Venus at 29 in a superior square to Pluto, Moon trine Pluto, right? Moon trine the sun, not a bad aspect actually. Venus is technically within 9 degrees trine to Jupiter. So that can be saying certain things have to come to an end, you know, if it's for the better. Probably the most challenging aspect is the fact that this quincunxes Neptune and squares Pluto. We'll probably look at this chart again. I will just say that this is definitely speaking to the fact that long-standing injustice, you know, related issues or relationship imbalances or karmic-related issues are definitely coming up. That's going to be a huge theme during the, you know, entire next 3 months until we get to December, which I think anybody would tell you that anyway, just knowing some of the events going on in the world with the election and just other you know, kind of global happenings right now. September may be more mellow, but October through the new year is just like insane. Like September is where we get a break, you know, the next couple of months it starts to heat up again. All right, so then on the 24th, we will see Mercury make an opposition to Neptune. Let's see, 28. Is it the 24th? No, I take that back. The 24th is going to be Mercury trine Uranus right here. So this is where finally we've gotten out of the Mercury haze. The trine to Uranus is kind of pivoting, keeping an open mind, exciting information, news that's coming in, and then it starts to oppose Neptune. So it's like, wait, is that real? Like I heard this thing, is it real? I don't know. You know, it's going to be hard to differentiate what is and isn't true. But we may be focusing on facts rather than fiction, especially with the trine to Uranus, which is about changing numbers, changing resources, changing something maybe with jobs. And then the trine to Pluto, which can be about power transformations and change. And then we will see on the 25th, Mercury opposes Neptune, which is really difficult for clarity and communication. But simultaneously, it's still trining Uranus and also Pluto. So it's like there could be some news that's breaking and people are like, is that true? Like if that's the case, that's going to change everything, you know, type of thing. And Mercury trine Pluto is great for research. It's great for uncovering things, for truth. And I think a lot of this is going to be revolving around jobs, economic predictions, analysts. Virgo is analysts. So people who are coming out and they're being like, this is the reality with the polls, with the stock market, you know, with the job market. And it will probably not go over very well, I would assume, with, you know, obviously with Saturn and Neptune, because it's already come into the opposition. So it's about kind of combing through some of the statements that were put out, some of the economic data that was put out, some of the job numbers, and people being like, actually, let's really break this down and let's talk about it. And it can be very visual with oppositions to Neptune. So it can be easily digestible by, you know, the public, and people can kind of better understand and not just feel like they have to try to interpret some of these charts and graphs, which is kind of cool. All right. Venus, I almost missed this one. Venus will go into Scorpio. So that'll happen, it looks like, you know, right around the PM hours of the 22nd, going into the 23rd. Venus enters Scorpio, we will see that. And then on the 25th, we saw the Mercury opposition Neptune trine Pluto. And then on the 28th, you're going to see the Sun conjunct, let's see, Sun conjunct, not quite yet. The Sun's coming into conjunction with the South Node. So it's close. That's going to be right around here. So looks like Mars will trine Saturn on the 29th. Good working day for getting stuff done, especially with home. If you got to like, you know, build a foundation in your home, you got to pour cement, you're putting a new deck maybe. If you're wanting to start laying plans for a home, if you're wanting to make big changes in terms of where you're living or with that kind of stuff, it's a good day for that. Especially physical structures because it's at 14. So if you have to use cement or, you know, steel or anything like that, good time for that for home planning. And this is when the sun hits the south node. So there can be a sense of like reflecting on the past in relationships, but there can also be the sense of like people coming back to help you and support you in some way. Yes, this can be where there's changes in relationship dynamics for sure. Mercury will also be coming into conjunction with the south node. So this could be yet another day on the 29th where you're potentially hearing from people from the past. But I think the Mars trine Saturn is well welcomed. We'll see another one of those when Mars goes retrograde. And then what we're going to see on the 30th is we're going to see the Cazimi. So this is interesting that both Mercury and the Sun pass through the south node while Venus is in Scorpio. So it's like what good relationship changes we've made. And then it looks like Mercury is going to Cazimi on the 30th. So this is the superior conjunction between Mercury and the Sun, relaying a message to the Sun. And this is ruled by Venus, and Venus is in Scorpio. So this is right before the eclipse, which will be on October 2nd. So the eclipse will be at 10 degrees. And this Cazimi is some kind of information that's coming out, some kind of, you know, epiphany, awareness about relationships, some fated encounter, somebody that you're meeting maybe right before the eclipse, which will be at 10 degrees. Interesting. Obviously, you know, solar eclipse in Libra, Venus in Scorpio can be a little difficult, but Venus will be second house to the eclipse. So it can be about positive changes in resources and values, you know, opportunities for wealth, gaining something in regards to relationships and working with other people. But that's going to be the day that you're going to want to watch for important communication, especially within relationships or with clients, right? So just remember, Mars enters Cancer September 4th. September 8th, Mercury returns back to the sign of Virgo, and then you will see it go into Libra. And all the other dates I'll put below. So the new moon's on the 2nd, and the full moon is going to be on the 17th, and that will be the lunar eclipse. And just as a reminder, you don't have to wait till the eclipse to feel it. Be mindful, really significant life decisions and stuff that you're making during the eclipse, especially with this one. It can be a bit of a curveball. So the day before, the day of, the day after, especially if you have any personal planets in Pisces, 24, 25, 26 degrees, or if you are those degrees in the mutable signs, you're really going to be feeling the impacts of the square. That's pretty much it for the month ahead. So I hope that that's helpful in giving you guys some insights. Make sure you check all those dates in the description below. And I hope that you guys will join me throughout the rest of the month. I will be back here on Tuesday. We're going to start talking about eclipses. We're going to start talking about Mars in Cancer because we want to kind of come up with a game plan for that. And I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend, the rest of your Sunday. You have a beautiful month of September, and I'll be hanging out with you throughout the month along the way. If you guys want to see more about me and my work, or you want to book a personalized reading with me, you can check out my website at beyondtheveiledtarot.com. Sign up for my newsletter while you're there. I won't spam you, but I do always put out products and stuff in the fall. So we start coming out with my astrology calendars for the next year. Sometimes we do something like the lunar prints, like the one that you see behind me. I made that last year. And all kinds of stuff that you can either get for preparation for the new year, or you can give as gifts. So we'll probably start putting some of that stuff out in the fall. I'm working on it right now. So if you guys are interested in checking that out, please do. Otherwise, I'll catch you back here next time, and you guys enjoy the rest of your week. Take care.